Ask someone about their first day of kindergarten. They'll tell you the smell of the classroom, the walk to the bus stop, what they were wearing. That single day 20 or 30 years ago still plays back in detail, like it happened last week. Now ask them about last September. Most people go quiet. It's already a blur. A whole month gone, and they can barely name one specific thing that happened inside it. Same length of time, both of them. 30 days is 30 days. The clock ran at exactly the same speed for both. But one of them felt like it lasted forever, and the other one barely feels like it happened at all. And it isn't just a feeling that shows up once in a while. It gets stronger every single year, on a schedule almost nobody notices until they're already deep inside it. You'll hear people say some version of it every January, every birthday, every reunion. I can't believe another year's gone already. It's such a common complaint that most people have stopped asking why it happens. They've just filed it away as a rule of nature, something time does to everyone, no explanation required. It isn't a rule of nature, it's a rule of memory. Something in your brain is doing the timing here. And whatever it isn't a clock. The oldest explanation for this is also the simplest, and it starts with a piece of math from almost 150 years ago. In 1877, a French philosopher named Paul Janet noticed something odd about how people describe their own lives. A 10-year-old experiences 1 year as 1/10 of their entire existence. A 50-year-old experiences that same 12 months as 1/50th. Push it further, and the numbers get almost absurd. At 5 years old, a single year is 20% of everything you've ever lived. At 15, it's down to about 7%. By 50, it's shrunk to 2. By 80, it's barely more than 1. Janet's idea was that we don't feel time in fixed units, the way a calendar does. We feel it in proportion, measured against everything else we've already lived through. To a 5-year-old, one summer is a massive slice of their entire life so far. To a 40-year-old, that same summer barely registers as a fraction. It also quietly explains something else. Most people can't remember much of anything before the age of 3 or 4. A gap scientists call infantile amnesia, which means your earliest remembered years, the ones that feel like they lasted an eternity, are also the very first years your brain was keeping a diary at all. It's a clean piece of math, and it lines up with something almost everyone has felt. For over a century, it was the leading explanation anyone had for why life seems to accelerate. But in 2021, a team of researchers finally went back and tested it directly. They brought in more than 100 people, ranging from 20 years old to 91. They asked each one how fast the past year, and the past decade, felt like it had gone. Then they measured something Janet's math never accounted for: how well each person could form brand new memories, tested through simple recall tasks, completed weeks apart. If Janet's proportional math was the whole answer, age alone should predict the feeling, with no exceptions. Older people should feel time speeding up, full stop. That is not what the data showed. The people who felt time accelerating the most weren't simply the oldest people in the study. They were the people, at any age, whose ability to lay down new memories had weakened the most. Some of the oldest participants, whose memory was still sharp, reported time passing at a completely normal pace, no faster than it had at 30. Meanwhile, some much younger participants with weaker memory encoding felt time already speeding away from them. In other words, the size of the fraction matters less than what actually gets left behind inside it. Age was never really the cause. It was just usually correlated with the real one, which has a strange upside buried in it. If time speeding up were purely about the math of aging, there'd be nothing anyone could do about it. You can't stop turning 50. But if it's actually about how many new memories your brain is laying down, that's not fixed at all. It's closer to a habit than a sentence. Here's a strange way to test that same idea in a lab, with nothing to do with age at all. Show someone the same image over and over, flashed on a screen for a fixed length of time. Then slip in a different image, held on screen for the exact same length, down to the millisecond. Afterward, ask which one lasted longer. People get it wrong almost every time. The new image, the one that didn't repeat, is remembered as lasting up to 50% longer than it actually did, even though the clock proves the two were identical. Neuroscientists call this the oddball effect. The explanation traces down to something happening at the level of individual neurons. The first time your brain sees something, cells fire hard to process it. Show that same thing again, and those same cells respond weaker and weaker again. A phenomenon called repetition suppression. A familiar image barely registers the second or third time because your brain has stopped spending effort on it. A new image forces full effort every time, and that extra effort gets misread afterward as extra time, which means a familiar Tuesday and a genuinely new experience can occupy the exact same 60 minutes on a clock and still leave completely different amounts of time behind in your memory. And here's where it gets stranger, because the effect actually flips, depending on exactly when you measure it. Psychologist Claudia Hammond calls this the holiday paradox. A week away, somewhere new usually feels like it flies by while you're living it. You're absorbed, distracted, busy, having a good time. But ask about that same week a month later, and it suddenly feels like it lasted twice as long as it actually did. A routine week does the exact opposite. It feels like it's moving at a completely normal pace while you're inside it. But looked back on later, it collapses down to almost nothing. Because there was nothing new inside it worth the brain's effort to keep. Picture it side by side. 2 weeks abroad in a city you've never seen comes back to you as a thick stack of distinct days. The market, the wrong train, the restaurant you found by accident. 2 weeks working from the same desk, eating the same 3 lunches, come back as one smeared together memory, if it comes back at all. Hammond's explanation is that your brain is actually running 2 separate clocks at once. One clock while you're living the moment. Call it the experiencing clock. One clock while you're looking back on it later. The remembering clock. Most days, the two roughly agree with each other. Novelty is what makes them dramatically disagree. Fast in the moment, long in hindsight. This is also why people remember far more from their late teens and 20s than from any other decade of adult life. A pattern researchers call the reminiscence bump. That stretch is usually packed with firsts. First apartment, first real job, first heartbreak, first time truly on your own. All of it new, all of it kept. Once the firsts run out, the record keeping slows down with them. Put all of this together, and childhood and adulthood stop looking like 2 different speeds of the same thing. They start looking like 2 entirely different machines. A child's year is already a huge fraction of their whole life, by Janet's math alone. On top of that, it's packed with firsts. First day of school, first best friend, first broken bone, first bike ride, without hands, on the handlebars. Every one of those firsts is a new memory, stretching that year out from 2 directions at once. A bigger fraction, and a denser stack of things worth remembering. An adult's year is already a shrinking fraction of a much longer life. And on top of that, it's usually built almost entirely out of repetition. The same commute, the same desk, the same 6 restaurants, the same conversations about the same things. Nothing new to stretch it out. Nothing distinct enough to leave behind. Ask a child to list everything memorable from last summer, and you'll get a list. Ask most adults to list everything memorable from last year, and you'll get maybe 5 things, spread across 52 weeks. The rest wasn't lost. It was simply never written down in the first place. Think about it in terms of distinct, rememberable days instead of years. Somewhere between the ages of 5 and 10, a child might rack up hundreds of them. New schools, new friendships, new skills learned one clumsy attempt at a time. Somewhere between 40 and 45, an adult living on autopilot might land on a dozen. Same 5 years. On the calendar. Widely different amount of life actually recorded inside them. These two effects don't simply add together. They multiply each other, a smaller fraction, filled with even less worth keeping, year after year. So here's the actually useful part. You can't undo the math. A year at 40 will always be a smaller fraction of your life than a year at 10 was. But the math was never the whole story to begin with. The memory was. Every piece of research here points at the same lever. Novelty is what makes your brain bother to store a moment at all. It doesn't have to be a trip across the world, a new route to work, an unfamiliar restaurant, a conversation you didn't see coming, a weekend with no repeated plan at all. None of it has to be big, it only has to be different from yesterday. The years that feel long looking back were never the years that technically lasted longest. Every year is the same number of days, on every calendar for everyone. They were the years your brain had an actual reason to remember. Nobody gets more hours in a day by chasing novelty. But somewhere down the line, when you try to look back on this year and the last one, you'll be able to tell them apart. And that, it turns out, is most of what time well spent ever actually meant. That part, unlike the fraction, is still entirely up to you.